On today's Four Verts episode, we are previewing the AFC West as our NFL divisional preview series continues. My name is Harrison Graham. You got the Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers, and Raiders. We'll go through all of these teams on today's show. Let's talk about the team that has owned this division for about a decade now. That is the Kansas City Chiefs, and they, of course, are going for a three-peat, not in the division, but to win a third straight Super Bowl, as they would become the first team in NFL history to do so if they accomplish that feat this year. And I think the biggest storyline around Kansas City this offseason was the intentional additions of speed offensively. They signed Marquise Brown to a one-year deal, and they traded up with the Bills. Still can't believe the Bills traded with them to acquire Xavier Worthy in the first round of the NFL draft. It's been a talking point all offseason, dating back to OTAs, through training camp, etc. They want to bring the deep ball back to their offense because in the last couple of years, without Tyreek Hill, A, the Chiefs did not have true burners that could win consistently downfield, and B, a lot of teams played a lot of quarters, two deep safety looks. But when you have Worthy and Brown, both those guys on the field at the same time, it's got to be pretty hard to prevent those guys from finding creases downfield, at least sometimes, because they're two of the fastest players in the NFL. This feels like a massive year for Mahomes, just in the sense that he's playing for a lot this year. He's playing for history. And quite frankly, he didn't have a great year last year, especially for his standards. Now, he turned it on in the playoffs, made plays when he had to. It was more of a defensive-oriented team based on the roster construction, and he understood that. He accepted that. And while this defense is still really good and they don't have a true number one receiver, with the additions of Brown and Worthy, I kind of expect Patrick Mahomes to have a pretty big season here. Their receivers as a whole isn't amazing by any means. It's not going to be what it was a few years ago, but I like the additions. If Rashee Rice doesn't get suspended this year, his next court date is December. Feels like that'll get pushed to next year. Then I think this offense should be better. We know they can run it with Pacheco. I'm a little concerned about the backup running back depth. Kind of some question marks there. Rookie left tackle is somewhat of a question, but I just love the speed additions. You bring back Juju. Does he do anything? We'll have to wait and see. But I just feel like if they can get the vertical passing attack back into this offense, it's going to be tough to stop this team offensively. I think they'll be rated much higher than they were a year ago in the regular season. Scoring should be up, and it'll probably need to because chances are they'll miss L'Jarius Sneed a little bit. We'll see who that number 2 corner ends up being opposite of Trent McDuffie, who are there putting on the outside from nickel. After a year ago, Jamari Conner expected to start at nickel. They'll miss Sneed some, but I don't think they'll miss him a ton, and as long as it's not a major loss, the defense should still be pretty damn good as well. Before we get to our next AFC West teams, subscribe to the channel. Our divisional series continuing here. Still have 3 more to go. NFC West, and then both North divisions. So be on the lookout for that. And if you just want free and daily NFL and college football content in general, this is the channel for you. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. All right. How about the Denver Broncos? Are they gaining steam? Are they gaining momentum as kind of a trendy team that could, punch above their weight this year? It wouldn't completely shock me. When you have a head coach and a quarterback, you got a chance. Now, I think we all believe in Sean Payton as a coach. The question is Bo Nix the answer? He had a very strong training camp in preseason, was named the starter over Zach Wilson in preseason as well to win that QB1 job. Jarrett Stidham was in the mix as well. Bo Nix won the starting job before the 3rd preseason game. Kind of shows how well he played. And I watched both his games in preseason week 1 and 2 and looked pretty good. Decisive, got the ball out, accuracy. He's got better arm strength than expected, pretty good athlete. And, we've talked about this on this channel. Fit oftentimes is just as important as anything else when it comes to quarterbacks, especially when you're not considered a superstar talent coming out. Like, Bo Nix is considered a decent prospect, not considered Caleb Williams or even Drake May or Jaden Daniels. But you put him with Sean Payton, a guy who had a quarterback in Drew Brees, who was undersized, didn't have all the gifts, but very accurate, got the ball out quickly. You see some similar traits in Bo Nix. It seems like a fit that could work. And if Payton has his guy, who he clearly didn't in Russell Wilson last year, he was kind of done with him halfway through the year and was like, look, you either take a pay cut or we're just not going to play you. I mean, we're just going to cut you after the year, which is what ended up happening. looks pretty crisp with Bo Nix. The vibes seem higher in Denver. And I don't know if they're ready to contend. I don't think they can win this division over Kansas City. But could they be in the wild card mix? Could they get second in a division that's not that great after the Chiefs? I think that's possible. They certainly are going to need to run the ball. The defense is going to have to play like they did the second half of last year because if you remember, early in the season a year ago, Vance Joseph's defense was getting shredded. I mean, they gave up 70 points to the Miami Dolphins. But as the year went on, it looked better. Added a couple young pieces this offseason. We'll see if the defense can it be top half of the league? If it can and Nix is solid, I can see this team winning 8-9 games and being in the mix for a wild card spot. The over-under in Vegas is like 5.5. I love the over there. I think they're going to win at least 7. Good coach, promising young talent at QB. I could see this working out at least somewhat well early on here. Let's go to the new-look Chargers here. New head coach Jim Harbaugh taking over. A lot of roster changes, especially offensively. Can they make a push, kind of like Denver? Two teams that are intriguing, but most expect are not quite ready to contend. Certainly a big shift offensively. When you bring in Jim Harbaugh, who then brings in Greg Roman, a run-first, pound-the-rock type of offensive coordinator, it makes you wonder how this will look. I mean, they traded Keenan Allen to Chicago. They cut Mike Williams in favor of keeping Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. Classic Harbaugh, let's keep the trenches guys, so definitely wasn't shocked by that. They need Ladd McConkey, the rookie receiver out of Georgia, to play well. And reports have been good out of camp. We'll see if Quentin Johnston can contribute in year 2. And I think more importantly, you can now start to judge Justin Herbert moving forward because the coaching situation he's had has just been abysmal. I mean, Brandon Staley's just not an NFL head coach. Anthony Lynn, nice guy, more of an offensive coordinator than a head coach. Now, this year's going to be interesting for Herbert because he does lose his top 2 weapons in Allen and in Mike Williams. And I'm not sure about the Greg Roman fit at offensive coordinator. Greg Roman has worked with offenses quarterbacks by Colin Kaepernick, Tyrod Taylor, Lamar Jackson, teams that want to run the football and run their QB. Justin Herbert can run, but he's a guy you want to utilize from the pocket and throw the football with. So I would think Roman's going to have to adjust a bit there, but Herbert's probably also going to have to adapt and say, look, I get it. We're going to run the ball a lot with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. That's how Harbaugh wants to play. He wants to be balanced, run the ball, set up play action, and when it's time to make a big play, lean on his quarterback. I mean, you watched 49ers back in the day. They just pounded Frank Gore, and when Kaepernick needed to make a play, they asked him to make a play. That was their offensive philosophy, similar to J.J. McCarthy at Michigan this past year. And one thing I will say, and I think a lot of people out there are like, oh, man, this Chargers roster is a mess, and it's thin at some spots, there's no doubt. But the offensive line should be solid. I'm a Herbert believer, and I think with Harbaugh, that could be really, really good. Questions with Greg Roman, but I like the head coach QB pairing there. They should be able to run the ball. If the defense can stay healthy, if those guys rushing the passer, Mack and Bosa, who have some injury history, if they can stay out there, Derwin James, injury history, if he can stay healthy, I think they have a shot to push for a wild card spot because historically, Jim Harbaugh's teams punch above their weight. They overachieve. We saw that with San Francisco numerous years. His worst year with the 49ers was 8-8. He's never gone below 500 as an NFL head coach. So I expect them to be in the mix come December. I don't think they will challenge the Chiefs for the division, but could they sneak in at the 7th seed in the AFC if a couple things go their way? Wouldn't shock me. I think next year, though, 2025 and beyond, really for both Denver and Los Angeles, these two teams, along with the Chiefs, I feel like it could become a 3-team division for the foreseeable future. Unfortunately, I don't have the Raiders in that conversation right now, as they enter this year with, quite frankly, not many expectations. And there's a couple of reasons why, but the main reason is they just don't have a good quarterback situation. Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew competed for the job, and it was a close battle, but not because it was a great battle. Neither guy performed. Minshew, based on reports, did not look like the guy in Indianapolis last year that had Shane Steichen calling plays for him. Luke Getsy is not Shane Steichen, believe me. But he gets the nod because Aiden O'Connell could not take the job. And that's not ideal either because it seemed like they wanted AOC to take that job, and he just couldn't do it. So they have to go with the veteran in Minshew. And I just think there's too many questions. And it's a shame because they've got some really good pieces. I mean, Devontae Adams is still a hell of a receiver. I like Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer at tight end. Obviously, Max Crosby is one of the best defensive players in the NFL. You've got legitimate studs at different positions, but when you don't have a quarterback and you have a complete unknown at head coach in Antonio Pierce, who seems like a nice guy and a good motivator, kept that team together last year, but is he ready to be a long-term head coach in this league? Maybe he is, but we don't have a ton of evidence to support that, and it just leaves you asking questions like, can you compete with those two major question marks at quarterback and head coach? I don't know how you can. Even though the Chargers and Broncos aren't really expected to be great, they have proven head coaches, and I still think better quarterback situations, especially with Justin Herbert, and I think even with Bo Nix with the pairing of Sean Payton. Like, you ask yourself, would you rather have Gardner Minshew and Luke Getsy or Sean Payton and Bo Nix? I'll take Sean Payton and Bo Nix every day of the week and twice on Sunday. So I just think that bodes trouble for Las Vegas. So I just think when you have disadvantages at the two most important spots on your team, which is head coach and quarterback, that's tough to overcome. So they're going to lean on defense. They're going to need to run the ball with Zamir White. They lost Josh Jacobs. That's not ideal either. I think it's going to be a tough year. I think it's going to be a tough year for Vegas. And I'll say this, if it's going to be a tough year, then be really bad and get a quarterback. Because if they can get a good quarterback in the draft or maybe Dak Prescott in free agency, they could be a playoff team next year because they have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. They just don't have a quarterback, and that causes major problems when you're trying to win 9, 10, 11, 12 games. All right, so when you take a look, recapping it all, I think the Chiefs won the division again. I just think too much talent. In a down year last year, they still ran away with it at 11-6, and then, of course, won the Super Bowl. They have three-peat on their minds. I think they win this division pretty easily, at least by 2 games. I think the Chargers and Broncos will surprise some people. I think they both win at least 7, 8 games. Maybe one of them gets to 9. I think they just miss out on the wild card, though. I don't think they're quite going to be a playoff team this year, either of those groups, but wouldn't shock me if one of them were. And then I think the Raiders are in that discussion with New England, Carolina, the Giants, in that mix to potentially get the number 1 pick. I think they're a 4 or 5 win team this year. All right, there you have it. My AFC West breakdown and predictions here. If you're looking for more NFL news, rumors, content, divisional breakdowns like this, hit the subscribe button here on 4 Verts. My name is Harrison Graham. We'll see you guys soon.